that we're missing an opportunity there as well. Debt can be used just like any other financial tool. And as long as we're smart about it and we try to reduce those costs, the cost of interest, opportunity cost, right? It can actually help us in our financial future. I want to focus in on Warren Buffett because Warren Buffett is pretty savvy about this. Warren Buffett even owns a company called Berkshire Hathaway that all they do is invest in other opportunities. Now, question for you. When Warren Buffett wants to invest in something new, does he liquidate a whole bunch of his stock holdings and maybe a few real estate buildings so that he'll have the cash to put in the brand new investment opportunity? Does he liquidate his own money and do it? Or what do you think Warren Buffett does? Warren Buffett probably seeks out some lenders or other avenues to help him pay for it. Chances are he's not going to risk his own or all of his own capital to finance this. And that's the sort of thing that we want to think about as we're using debt in our own financial strategy. So, back to the first two strategies that we used or talked about the last time. The first of those two strategies was make minimum payments only. By making our minimum payments only, instead of trying to put extra cash toward those debts, we will then have some extra money to save. The other thing that we talked about was never keep a balance on high credit cards, though. If we have a very high cost of interest, we want to move that to a lower cost or get it paid off. So that brings us to option number 3. Overcome obstacles. It pays to reassess and learn other money saving techniques. In the last video, I mentioned to you that if you have a big balance on a lot of credit cards, and essentially you're routinely spending more than you can afford, then we have to take a look at that. Now, it might not mean that you're doing anything wrong. Remember before when I talked about having that large balance or that $1,200 balance on a credit card when I first moved out? It was basically because I wasn't making enough to support myself. That was it. And so sometimes here it means maybe we need to look at a second job, a career change, other ways that we can bring in other income. Maybe we live in a house that's too expensive. It's part of the reason that I moved down here to Mexico. I mean, my house wasn't necessarily too expensive. I could afford it, but I wanted to write my book, and living down here in Mexico was less expensive. In fact, I live 3 blocks from the Pacific Ocean in a beautiful condo. Someday I'll show you. I was going to try to do this video out on my patio so you could see it, but look at that sun. Oh my gosh. I've even got that like closed and it's still making a ton of sun behind me or light. So, but I have a furnished 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo in Mazatlan, Mexico, 3 blocks from the Pacific Ocean for under $1,000 a month or about $1,000 a month, depending on the conversion rate. This gives me lots of extra pennies to save. So sometimes we want to reassess and reevaluate our debt. If it's at higher interest rates, check around. See if you can find something lower. It's worth the time and effort invested. I want to tell you a story about a young college woman who was telling me about her student loans. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but during COVID, a lot of the student loans went on hold. People didn't have to make their payments so that they were afforded a little financial cushion if something had happened through their job through COVID. So she was going to have to start making her payments on her student loans. And she was concerned about this. She had been working for a master's degree, but her undergrad studies were at like 9% interest. And honestly, even then, during COVID, I mean, right now, 9% seems high on that side, on a student loan. But during COVID, I mean, some of the loans were at 0%. The prime rate was at zero. This is where people were getting like 2.5% mortgages. Remember that? So the fact that she's paying 9% on these student loans was surprising to me. So I suggested to her, maybe you look at refinancing it. And she said, you can do that? And I said, yeah. I mean, essentially, if you're a good creditor and you've been paying your bills, other people will look at giving you loans at sometimes better rates. So I checked back in with her a couple weeks after that. And I asked her, did you happen to check into it? And she said, no, not yet. I hope she has now. I hope by now she has. I mean, if we can just go on Google and do a search, which I did on this, I found a ton of different options. I even found YouTube videos about how to do it. Other stuff right on federal websites, the FAFSA, essentially saying how to get some of these refinanced, how to find good lenders who might give you lower interest rates. It's worth the time and effort to see if we can save a little bit of money. Every single dollar, every single penny we save in interest and other expenses is just going to help us in our financial future. The more pennies we put away, the better off we're going to be. And in fact, in an upcoming video, I'm going to talk to you about the power of all these pennies and how quickly they can compound for your future. So, off to our 6 strategies. This brings us then to number 4. Keep an excellent credit score. And it probably should say, if you don't have an excellent credit score, get one. Now, I'm going to spend some time in a video talking about how to improve your credit score. I'm going to tell you about how a number of the things you might hear about your credit score are variables that may or may not make a difference. Because this is the big thing. Pay your bills and pay them on time. Period. That's it. Yes, if you're getting too many credit checks, it can bring your score down. Yes, if you have balances that are too great a percentage of your limit, it can bring your score down. But all of these things are not as consequential to your credit score as routinely paying your bills and paying them on time. That's it. If you're struggling with doing that, we'll have some video content too about how to check into things like bankruptcy. Sometimes our debt is beyond what we can manage, or checking in with credit counselors to find ways to reduce the overall debt and to get things better on track. So we'll talk about some of those things, but in the meantime, pay your bills, pay them on time. That's it. And since we can automate all of this stuff through our checking account, pretty easy. Usually pretty easy. Any questions on that one? I feel like I'm in one of my classes. I just asked you if you have questions. Got questions? Put them in the doobly-doo. All right. That brings us then to number 5. Ooh, finance what will grow. Wisely use debt to further our financial goals. This one goes back to Warren Buffett and really anybody who uses debt to make money. Well, you can actually use debt to buy a latte and a McDonald's burger and a whole host of things that aren't going to bring you more money. They might bring you some little temporary joy, but they're not going to bring you more money or bring you something better into the future. It's best not to pay interest on things like that. But when it comes to our home, an investment in a business, your college education, all of these things make better financial sense to actually borrow the funds. I know that there's pundits out there, and we're going to do another Dave Ramsey, who even say, get your home paid off. This does not make sense. Some people out there have 2.5% on their mortgage. I even have 4. In the last video, I told you how you can get 5% in a money market. Why would I throw all of my extra cash at debt that is at such low interest rates? And if I tried to save all of the money that I need to buy a home with cash, I'd be living in somebody's basement for a really long time. Pretty much the whole close to 30 years that it would take me to actually pay off my mortgage. So definitely when we're taking out debt, we want to consider what's going to actually help us gain more wealth in the future. Now, in my book, I go through a lot of examples of this and even use Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter and how he ended up financing that. So that'll get into a lot more detail than I'll do in a video like this, but just be cognizant of what you're using the debt for. I'm going to do one though, even on financing a car, because a lot of times financing the car can make more sense than paying cash for it, because then you can keep your pennies in your savings. That gets a lot more interest. All right, off to number 6. All of this will come together later. I know it seems like a lot, and the saving side of it's equally important. So we'll get a video out on that soon. Now we're off to number 6, the 6th and final one. And this one talks about other value you can get from debt. So for number 6, we want to use our credit cards for everything. Well, I mean, that is if you get other perks. This is like the cash back from Discover, GMC Bucks. Amazon gives you 5% back on all of your Amazon purchases if you have one of their cards. Get credit cards that give you something that you care about, and then use your credit cards for everything. Now, again, this only makes sense though if we pay off the balance at the end of every month. That's where that lovely line of credit that I talked to you about last time comes in. Because if we don't have the money to pay off the entire balance, then we've got the line of credit to take care of it. One of my favorite things is frequent flyer miles. And living here in Mexico right now, I fly a lot. I want to go home and see my family. Plus, I want to travel around Mexico a little bit. So I use credit cards that give me frequent flyer miles. For every flight I pay for, I generally get at least 2 for free. Now, granted, I also run a business and I run a lot of those charges through the credit cards too. So my spending patterns might be a little bit larger than what yours might be, but figure out what you like. Even if it's cash back from Discover, GMC dollars, Cabela bucks, whatever your fancy is, get a credit card that pays you for it. Now, with that, we want to actually look at the total cost. Because if we have an annual fee with that credit card and the annual fee is more than the benefits we might receive, that's not a good deal. I was just trying to think. I think the only card that I have that I pay an annual fee on is my business frequent flyer card. But that one's only $25. And I know I get more benefits than that. So definitely weigh out all of it, but you got to make sure you pay off the balance. It makes 0 cents to even get 5% cash back, as an example, and then pay 22% interest on it. No, we got to pay off the balance every month. All right, those are the 6 strategies. Let me pop them up there for you again. Rule number 1, make minimum payments only. This gives us the extra cash to be able to save. Now, in future videos, we're also going to talk about budget changes, just like me moving down here to Mexico. Anything you can do to trim expenses out of your budget so you can save more will give you a more solid financial future. Never keep a balance on high credit cards. Find a way to reorganize that, which brings us to rule number 3, overcome any obstacles. If you do have too much debt and it's suffocating, look at some things like bankruptcy or debt consolidation, or maybe moving to a lower cost house. Whatever you need to do to try to get things on a better path for you. And I don't know what that is, but I'm also going to give you some strategies to help you figure it out in some future videos. All right, number 4, keep an excellent credit score. And if you don't got one, get one. Pay your bills and pay it on time. And if you're finding that's hard to do, again, go back to rule number 3, overcome those obstacles. Then we've got rule number 5, finance only what will grow. And again, sometimes this means actually financing a car at, say, 5%, if you know you can earn on average 7 to 10% on the money you have saved. We'll talk about that in future videos. Then we've got rule number 6. Use your credit cards for everything because they will give you bonuses. Those are the 6 rules. I'm not sure what the next video will be. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about. Maybe let me know down in the doobly-doo what you'd like a video on. That way, I can make sure you're getting the content you need. I've got strategies about how to make decisions about all of this, the value of saving. Maybe we should do the compounding video. That is a good one. I'm also going to do some related to the election, like what's going on economically, because there's a lot of lies out there. A lot of lies. The economy is actually doing pretty good. We're actually the envy of most of the world. So I'm going to do some videos about that, because even when it comes to inflation and the national debt and some of those other things, it's not as bad as some people. It's not as bad as some people are making it sound. In fact, it's pretty darn good. So subscribe so you know when those next videos are coming out. Like this video if you got some good stuff out of it. And let me know what you might like in future videos to be about. Because I got so much stuff, it's hard to decide what to do. Anyway, I'll see you back here soon. And in the meantime, be fearless and have fun. Talk to you later.